Pruitt, shining wisdom's light, teaching soul tribe how to see through the night. Ancient scriptures and bloodlines she knows, spreading truth wherever she goes. Soul tribe rising, hear her call, raising vibrations for one and all. Dr. Kia shows the way to a brighter, freer day. Through her channel, knowledge flows, breaking chains that hold us close, teaching paths to abundance and wealth, guiding others to free themselves. Soul tribe rising, hear her call, raising vibrations for one and all. Dr. Kia shows the way to a brighter, freer day. From currencies to investments divine, she's helping her tribe to realign with wisdom, ancient and new, showing what we all can do. Soul tribe rising, hear her call, raising vibrations for one and all. Dr. Kia shows the way to a brighter, freer day. Soul tribe rising, hear her call, raising vibrations for one and all. Dr. Kia lights the way to a new and brighter day. Dr. Kia Pruitt, shining wisdom's light, teaching soul tribe how to see through the night. Ancient scriptures and bloodlines she knows, spreading truth wherever she goes. Soul tribe rising, hear her call, raising vibrations for one and all. Dr. Kia shows the way to a brighter, freer day. Through her channel, knowledge flows, breaking chains that hold us close, teaching just to free themselves. Soul tribe rising, hear her call, raising vibrations for one and all. Dr. Kia shows the way to a brighter, freer day. From currencies to investments divine, she's helping her tribe to realign with wisdom, ancient and new, showing what we all can do. Soul tribe rising, hear her call, raising vibrations for one and all. Dr. Kia shows the way to a brighter, freer day. Soul tribe rising, hear her call, raising vibrations for one and all. Dr. Kia lights the way to a new and brighter day.
All right, Soul Tribe, greetings. Thank you so much for being here. We're about to get started. Thank you for coming in the room. Just give me a few more minutes. I see you all letting us know where you're hailing from. Just 1 minute. I'm trying to get all this proof for you all that things are happening. You all that have been following me for a while know that it's not enough for me to report. In my opinion, I should support my claims. So that's what I've been doing. I've been looking up the research as I was doing other things. You know, I'm also homeschooling my grandchildren and doing some other work, but I want to make sure I had all of this evidence for you. It's not a lot. I won't be on for you all, before you all too long. So let me go ahead and get off here, family, get off this music, turn off the music. I'm going to turn on the camera in just 1 minute. I see you all from all over. Thank you for joining the Dr. Kia Pruitt show. Also, you know, as I am getting older, my eyesight is not changed much, but the way I used to be able to see things, you know, even if the lights were dim, it's just not the same anymore, family. I have to really do a lot to see. In fact, I'm starting to use, what do you call those? I'm starting to use magnifying glasses. And my grandchildren were like, Granny, you need magnifying glasses? Maybe you need some reading glasses. So come on in the room, family. I'm glad to see everybody. Welcome. So today I wanted to talk about enormous funds being released because under one of my last lives, somebody asked me, would I talk about NESARA? And in fact, they said, I thought Dr. Kia Pruitt said she was going to do something about NESARA. I don't recall saying that because I've done so many videos on the National Economic Security and Reformation Act. Greetings. But your wish is my command. So here I am. Hello, family. Good afternoon, good evening, good night. First, I wanted to address whether or not NESARA is real, the National Economic Security and Reformation Act. I see you, Florida. Is it real? And of course, I would say yes, it is. And I have proof. I'll provide a little evidence today. I don't want to be on long, but my major purpose for being on is to talk about worldwide prosperity programs and how they are currently in effect and how enormous amounts of wealth are being released. It's just that a lot of people don't know where to go to find it. Please let me know if you can see me. The weather in Duval County is very pleasant. Very pleasant. It was in the 70s today. Thank you for asking. So that's pleasant, especially for February. We do have warm weather in February often, but I know a lot of places are suffering from cold weather. Can you all see me well? I do have this lamp here. It's probably in the way. Greetings, Sister Chloe. Let me see what I can do. Okay, is that better? Please let me know if you can see me. Oh, you do see me. Okay. So I'll bring up, I have some notes here, which I'm having a little hard time seeing because it's dim here. And I am getting ready to go somewhere. So I probably won't be before you long. So keep checking in the room, coming in the room. Let us know where you are. You can't see me. Great. Grand evening to you too. You're watching from Tallahassee, Florida. Can you hear me as well? So, the National Economic Security and Reformation Act is an act that was actually something that the military was very adamant about making sure we had. What happened was the farmers here in America took the United States, incorporated before the world courts. And what they said was that the United States Incorporated and the Federal Reserve central banking system had enacted nefarious activities and nefarious banking practices and unlawful banking practices when it came to dealing with the farmers. So the banking system would tell the farmers if they wanted to continue to grow food for us and herd cattle for us in order to feed us, then they had to sow certain seeds that were poisonous. They had to feed the animals foods that's not natural for them. For example, cows aren't supposed to eat corn necessarily. They graze on grass, but they were forced to enact certain practices that were not healthy. So when the farmers took the United States Incorporated and the Federal Reserve Central Banking System to court, they actually won their claims. And that it was at a cost because some of them lost their lives. They had to pay a lot of their money to the attorneys. Some of the attorneys lost their lives, that the attorneys that were actually supporting them and representing them. And what's interesting to note is if you dig far enough, you can find these farmers' claims. And I also met a few people that were involved. So this isn't secondhand information. Some of this is first information. So what it was determined in the courts was that not only had the United States Incorporated, thank you, enacted nefarious laws or banking practices upon the farmers, but they had done it to we the people in America and people all over the globe. So it was determined then that when we went to the gold standard, that the farmers would be paid out. And not only would the farmers be paid out, but people all across the globe would be compensated for the nefarious banking practices of the United States Incorporated and their Federal Reserve central banking system. So it's interesting to note that around the same time when the farmers were taking United States Incorporated to court, you also had the Moors taking the United States Incorporated to court. You can look that up. You also had, and they took them to the world courts. You had Empress Verdi Asi Gaston L. Turner Bay. Her name is also Empress Verdi Asi Gaston L. Tunica Bay. Tunica is her Washita name. She took the United States Incorporated to court, and she took them to court as the representative or the empress of the Washita people or the Ashita Moors. Please let me know if you can still see me, okay? Because I know this light is She won her claim. And what she said was that the United States did not purchase land from the Washita people or the indigenous autogenous people, also classified as Black. But she said, you all did not buy land from us. There's no such thing as a Louisiana purchase, but there was a Louisiana theft. And she actually won her claim as well. And just like the farmer, she said, I don't want to be paid in fiat dollars. They all said they wanted to be paid in gold. Then you had a claim called something like CMX or CMSX claims, where there were many people that took the United States Incorporated to court because I don't remember what, something about how the United States Federal Reserve had promised some people treasury bonds or treasury notes or something, and they never received them. So they also took the United States Incorporated to court. I'll have to dig into that further. So there were a lot of people between the 80s and the 90s that were taking the United States Incorporated to court and the Federal Reserve central banking system. I did a short podcast about people taking the United States Incorporated to court, and I actually showed and proved that it was the world courts and not just some, not just Supreme Courts. And all of these people won their claims. And since they said they wanted to be paid out in gold, it was determined that all of these court cases would in fact be paid out in gold. Now, Empress Verdiasi Gaston L. Turner Bay won her claim in the amount of $85 quadrillion. You can find her on YouTube talking about her claims. She also wrote a book that talked about the mound builders, and she calls us the ancient ones. When I say us, I mean the indigenous, autogenous, copper-colored races discovered here by the Europeans when they came here, erroneously called Black African Americans. By the way, the last African American to live on this planet would actually just transitioned. That would be Reverend Jesse Jackson. He just transitioned, interestingly enough, right after the Epstein files were done. So he was the one allegedly that coined the phrase African American, and some people say that he actually held the patent to that phrase. They said that as an agent, we know he was an FBI or CIA agent of the deep state or the United States Incorporated, he was given that task to come up with a new classification for Black people, colored people, Negroids, indigenous, autogenous, American Indians. And he came up with the term African American. And that was just to further confuse people that were the indigenous people here and make them think that they came from Africa, because you can't really be from Africa and America. And so you all know the story, how we didn't come from Africa. We were already here. You can read books. You can read Christopher Columbus's account. You can read They Came Before Columbus by Ivan Van Sertima. And there are many other books that talk about that. So when Empress Verdiasi Gaston L. Turner Bay won her claim, she was told again that when the United States Incorporated would be dismantled and we will return to the gold standard, all the people that were listed in that claim or part of that claim would be compensated. Would it be just money, $85 quadrillion? I'm not sure, because I don't know all the details of that claim, but I do know that we have collaborated with other chiefs, and Chief Warhorse, Chief Rod Hayes, and they said that when the deep state has been taken down, the United States is taken down, we will all get a letter, whether you're an American Indian or called Black, colored, Negroid, African American, or any other people. Here on the land, you'll get a letter stating who your ancestors are, which land you owned, which property you own, and all that will be returned back to you. Now, they do have that information. They collected it through the Census Bureau. Incidentally, the Census Bureau are the ones who are responsible for changing the classification of autogenous American Indians. When you look at your great grandparents, and you can be brown, you can be Caucasian, it doesn't matter. A lot of people on these lands here in the Americas actually have a Native American or so-called Native American, indigenous, autogenous American blood. But for those copper-colored races that were discovered by Europeans, You need to know that the 1828 Webster's definition for American is the copper colored races discovered here by Christopher Columbus, but now applied to Europeans. And there are other definitions that precede 1828 Webster's definition. Additionally, you should know that once the Census Bureau, Walter Plecker was one of the ones that you can look him up, was important for doing this or known for doing this. Once they were given the mandate to change the classification of the autogenous copper colored races here, they changed the classification from Indian or American Indian to colored, then to Negro, and then to Black, and then to African American. When you look up the classification of African American, that really is about classifying meats and produce. So that's the way they perceive the Black people or Black races or copper colored races here, unfortunately. So Jesse Jackson, who came up with that terminology, African American, is known for the civil rights movement, representing people, and continuing on that terminology, African American, Black. But as we know, Black, when you look at the definition and you look at the books and the law dictionaries called Black Laws Dictionary, which our court system here utilizes, Black means you have no standing in law. Some say Black means dead, but it means you have no legal standing. So this is why people that are African, classified as African American, call themselves Black, because that was a part of the rhetoric and that was a part of the programming to get people to call themselves something other than their tribal lineage. So she won her claim, Empress Verdiasi, Gossanel Turner Bay. I would encourage you to look her up, research her. She did transition. Look up her book called The Ancient Ones, research her books, Mound Builders, et cetera, et cetera. But the farmers, who are the backbone of this nation, regardless of what your ethnicity is, are very, very important in terms of the implementation of NESARA. The farmers should be applauded. They should be thanked. Again, they gave their lives to ensure that this would happen, that we would have compensation for what the deep state cabal, which is currently being dismantled, has done to us here in America and all across the globe. So the global version is called the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act. Thank you to the person who asked me to go over this again. I appreciate this. Let's see. So if you are interested in looking at a very short video on it, then you can go to my YouTube channel, the main page, and you can look up, just type in NESARA and you will see the videos. So let's look at some of the benefits or tenets of the National Economic Security Reformation Act. First of all, the act is supposed to zero out all credit cards, mortgages, and other bank debt due to illegal banking and government activities. So some people will ask me, is this happening now? I would say some people have reported actually that they've had their credit cards zeroed out. They've had their mortgages to be paid off. And some people have even shown paperwork. I know a gentleman from Cleveland, Ohio, where I'm from, he sent me paperwork. There have been times when people have announced this underneath my videos, and I've shared that information with you all as well. So why are they going to zero out all credit card debt and zero out mortgages and bank debt? Well, first of all, because they weren't supposed to have us to take out bank loans. We are creditors. We are not debtors. We are the creditors. Everybody has a trust, especially here in America. If you have a birth certificate, you know that birth certificate was turned into a bond. It was traded on the New York Stock Exchange, and it accrued interest, and it was put in a trust. That trust and those funds were supposed to offset all of our living expenses here. But instead, what banks did was they would have us to take out loans, to sign off on those loans. I forget what it's called. master promissory notes. That was actually that even if you have a student loan, when you sign a master promissory loan, that accessed your trust and they gave them the power of attorney to pay your student loans, to pay off any of your living expenses. But they didn't do that only. They paid themselves, and then they forced us, if we took out loans for any of these, or we got credit cards, they forced us to pay them with interest. Well, unbeknownst to some people, paying interest is unlawful and unconstitutional. So these are nefarious banking practices to, number one, access the trust, especially unbeknownst to you, and then secondly, force you to pay them a second time, and then to pay interest. Again, paying interest is against the Constitution. That's called usury. Usury or paying interest is against the Constitution, and it's against the Bible if you are a Christian. Let me know if you want to look at these tenets with me, or if you just want me to go, over them one by one. And I'm also going to turn that music off. I think I can still hear this music. Okay. Greetings to you too. Yes, even your renting supposed to be paid off. How will the homeless get letters? Everybody will know how to access it, whether or not you get a letter, receive a letter, or where to go to get this information. Just like people figured out a way to get their stimulus check during the global shutdown. There were a lot of people who were homeless that got access to the stimulus check because they were afforded the information to know where to go in order to get the money. So having said that, if they have a hard time figuring out, there will be websites. There will be people also that will help them. Okay. So number one, again, was to zero out all credit card debt, bank debt, mortgages, and bank loans. Secondly, is to abolish income taxes. And we're going to get to the enormous wealth in a few minutes, but to abolish income taxes was the second tenet. And you all have heard President Trump say that he's going to get rid of the IRS and implement the ERS. So get rid of the Internal Revenue Services and implement the External Revenue Services. So that's on a large scale what he's going to do. And what he has done is put taxes or tariffs on other nations that do business with us. Why is he doing that? Because that's what all nations do. Most nations have historically, if not all, taxed each other for doing business. So if you import a good into a country, then they will put a tax on it, and that's the way the country makes money. Well, when these nefarious people took over the United States of America and usurped authority from our republic and created their own government, the United States incorporated themselves in 1871 as a nonprofit religious organization, they stopped putting taxes on a lot of these countries. And then they start taxing we the people. So they said, we're not going to tax other countries. We're going to give them the benefit. We're going to let them make all the money that they want. And we're going to let them import goods into the America so that they can literally take over our nation. Mostly everything we have is made by other nations, especially and specifically China. Even our food has been flown in from other countries. But by taxing the people instead, it was a way to enslave us. President Trump said he's going to come in and reverse that. That's why, and you can look it up, you will see thousands of people leaving the Internal Revenue Services. Thousands. Here, though, that's the federal, okay? Thousands of people are leaving. But here, when you think about states, we have at least up to now, we have 13 states that have eliminated income taxes in some way. Either they're reducing income taxes or they're completely eliminating income taxes. Most people know about the state of Florida and the state of Texas, but there are other states that have done the same. Now, most recently, last year, March 2025, you had March 27, 2025, you had the state of Mississippi to eliminate income taxes. And they have something called the Build Up Mississippi Act, and they passed Senate Bill 476 to eliminate income taxes in the state of Mississippi. Georgia, was that Senate Bill? Let me see. Let me see which Mississippi. Let's see which Senate bill that was. I'm going to make sure that's the right income tax eliminate. And always fact check me. Most often than not, I will put these articles that support my claims in the description section of the videos. So no, this particular one for Mississippi is actually House Bill 1. The other one was for Georgia. And I'll show that to you. Thank you so much. The Herbal says, even people in prison received their stimulus payments. Trust, everybody will be privy to the information. So let me show you Mississippi. See, the Governor Reeves signs a historic legislation eliminating income taxes. Let me show you another one, another article. Because people question whether the legitimacy of the National Economic Security and Reformation Act, and I, in my opinion, they have every right to question the legitimacy if they haven't seen it or most people aren't talking about it. How will they know it's true? Governor Reeves signed the historic legislation eliminating the individual income tax in Mississippi, known as House Bill 1 or the Build Up Mississippi Act. It empowered the state workforce by not taxing their hard-earned wages to give Mississippi another competitive advantage when competing for new economic development projects and private capital investments. So I said there were 13 states. Mississippi was the last to do so last year. Georgia currently is doing the same. And I'll pull that up for you. Georgia State Senate approved personal income tax cut bills in the state of Georgia. So what Georgia is doing is actually they're cutting back or reducing income taxes in the state of Georgia, and then they're going to escalate that to completely eliminate the taxes, the income tax there in Georgia. And I'll show you that right here. And you can look it up too. I know you can look it up for yourself, but I just wanted, that's the one that Senate Bill 476. They exempt the first $50,000 of taxable net income for individual filers and $100,000 for joint filers, providing significant upfront relief for Georgia taxpayers. I also want you to look up how at least 13 states have done that in America, eliminate state taxes, income taxes. What is the third component of the National Economic Security and Reformation Act? Oh, okay, that is to abolish the IRS completely and only have a 14% flat rate non-essential tax on new ticket items, large new ticket items. And I'll let you see that right here. This is under my NESARA video, National Economic Security and Reformation Act, that I did on January the 20th, 2026. Abolishes income tax. This is why a few years ago, after COVID, the IRS actually told people don't pay their taxes. I don't know if you all remember that, because I did report on that when it happened. And then last year, there were some articles that come out that said the IRS says don't pay taxes. But if you know the law, you know that paying taxes is actually a voluntary act. It's not mandate, it's not a law. It's something that the United States incorporated put on the people to further enslave us. The fourth tenet is that they would increase benefits to senior citizens. Before I go into that, let me see how many people have left the IRS. Or been fired from the Internal Revenue Service. Another thing we do know that happened or occurred under President Trump's first administration is that he took the duties of the Internal Revenue Services and he placed them underneath the U.S. Treasury Department. He took the duties. Anything dealing with money is supposed to be dealt with by the United States Treasury Department, according to our republic, our lawful our lawful government. So President Trump took all the duties of the Federal Reserve and United States the IRS, under the umbrella of the United States Treasury Department, I want to say around 2019, 2020. And you used to be able to find those articles. I'm not sure if you can now. But recently, the IRS workforce has shrunk 25% since President Trump took office. And that was the last data as of June. To hire hundreds of thousands of new workers that were given the command to arm and shoot anybody on site who didn't pay their taxes. Y'all remember that? It was like 300,000 people they were talking about hiring the IRS. But when Trump came back, he rejected that. Here's an article that was published last year, July 22nd, 2025, that said the Internal Revenue Service workforce had shrunk 25% since Trump took office. The IRS workforce has been slashed from approximately 103,000 employees in January when Trump took it on. They say second term. We know it's his third term. They shrunk from 103,000 to 77,000 in May. But we know there's been more. How do we know that more people, I'll put that in the chat for you, have left? Because when the Supreme Court of the United States overturned the Chevron doctrine in summer of 2024, they said that the United States Incorporated was unconstitutional and unlawful, and that the Chevron doctrine had given the United States Incorporated unlimited powers. They said this was treasonous and that all 444 government agencies had to be dismantled. This is why President Trump and Elon Musk created the Department of Government Efficiency. You all know that as of date, at least 300,000 government workers left. They were either given early retirement, or they resigned, or they got fired. That's documented. That happened immediately after President Trump tasked Elon Musk with downsizing the government. Now, the perfect time to do that was during the government shutdown. So President Trump created the Department of Government Efficiency after the Supreme Court of the United States overturned the Chevron doctrine. That's very important, because the United States Incorporated, again, they're bloodline families. They have nothing to do with us. Some of them are not human. They're human hybrids. We know, we've seen some people glitch. We know that some of them are reptilians, extraterrestrial, whatever you call them. We know that some of them are human hybrids, but they incorporated themselves as a government, and they have their own constitution called the Constitution of the United States Incorporated. They have their own banking system, which is called the Federal Reserve Central Banking System. They are not the republic. Our lawful government is the republic for our country. And we have a constitution for our republic, Constitution of the United States Incorporated, nefarious, Constitution for the lawful republic, lawful. So the Supreme Court of the United States overturned the Chevron doctrine, eliminating the powers of the federal government, saying that they were treasonous, and they went a step further and they said that all judges that participated in anything dealing with the United States government committed treason. And all judges that knew of a judge that went along with the shenanigans and didn't report it to the president committed misprision of treason. This is one of the reasons why many thousands of judges walked out of the Department of Justice. This is why judges are being arrested. This is why many judges and attorneys have been served notice. They have been served notice to vacate. This isn't the first time this has happened. It's not just the Supreme Court of the United States that overturned the Chevron doctrine in 2024 that is the precedent. That is in our current reality. But in 2014, you had the Pope Francis, say the same thing with Motu proprio. You can look on my YouTube channel, type in Motu proprio, Proprio, and I read the letter of Pope Francis saying it's over for us. Why does he have the authority to say that? Because remember, the United States Incorporated is a group of bloodline people who incorporated themselves as a nonprofit religious organization with the Pope as its head. That's what gave the Pope the authority to write the letter in 2014 to Obama. And he said, we must all cease and desist. He said, our time is up. He said in the letter, President Obama must step down, which Obama did not at that time. He said he is not the president of America or of the Republic. He is a president of all. He said he and all presidents are the president of corporations. He went on further to say all attorneys, all judges, all court officials, all policy enforcers known as police officers, all government agents must cease and desist. He said, if we do not, I'm speaking of the Pope in his letter in 2014, then the Grand Army of the Republic would be created with General Ham at the head of it. And this Grand Army of the Republic will take us down. You all remember that? I hope you're still with me. I don't see all of your, I don't see any more comments. I'll show you that letter, Motu proprio, just briefly. Let me see if I can go to my channel. Please let me know if you can still hear me and see me. Motu proprio. Just letting you know that this is real. I have several videos on it, but I'm going to go on one of them and see if my letter is underneath this particular one. Yep, it is. Okay. Whenever you see links like the one I'm going to show you, you probably should not only keep the link for your records, but copy and paste everything that's in that link, because sometimes they go missing. Sometimes, yep, like what just happened. I'm looking here for the letter, and this link, the link is there, but the letter is missing. However, I did copy and paste it somewhere else. Just 1 minute, I'll see if I can find it. Okay, so I had to go to a third link. Yes, I can put this. Can you all hear me? I sound wonderful and I look lovely. Thank you. Yes, that's the claim I was thinking of. CMKX Diamonds. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. So let's go. Let me show you this. I really don't want to keep you on long, but I do want to support my claims. Letter from Pope Francis I do have the official letter. This is somebody else's letter. This is the letter, but somebody else copied and pasted. Issued to all members of the domestic policy enforcers or police forces, U.S. Marshal Services, the Provost Marshal, members of the American Bar Association, and the American Services. So this is the letter. Basically, he said everybody must stand down. These organic American states of the Union, known as the United States of America, major exercising plenary civil power upon the land, hereby appoint General Carter F. Ham to lead and command the Grand Army of the Republic and its successors under the guidance of court chiefs of staff and with their full support. Should it become necessary to suppress commercial, mercenary, forces operating under the guise of being federal government agencies, including but not limited to the Department of Homeland Security, the Federal Emergency Management Administration, the Internal Revenue Services, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. General Ham shall assume immediate command and control of all armed forces and services owed to the United States of America major stationed in North America and should join them under his command as the Grand Army of the Republic. All forces of air, land, and sea are to be employed. Any cost or loss suffered as a result of deployment of the Grand Army of the Republic shall be charged as stipulated prior. All efforts shall be made by the Grand Army of the Republic to spare life and property while undertaking any action whatsoever within the United States of the Union without exception. The Grand Army of the Republic, which many of you now call the White Hats of the military, is uniquely enabled by these orders to operate on the land of the 50 organic states by the purposes of securing the lives and the property of the American states and American state citizens. Oops, where was I? And I can go on. Let me know if you want me to go on or if you just want me to leave it in the link. I can leave you the link so you can read it on your own. Where am I? All efforts shall be made. We read that. The Grand Army of the Republic is not a foreign army and is composed primarily of American state citizens. If required to take field position, the local commander shall make every effort to communicate the basis of their authority and the reasons for their presence on American state soil to ensure a prompt cessation of hostilities and a widespread undertaking of the usurpations and act of fraud which shall lead to any conflict. All parties must be brought to understand the nature of the federal government, the limitations of its authority, and their own obligation to act in favor of the organic states of the Union. The Grand Army of the Republic shall continue to operate under General Order 100, known as the Lieber Code, extant from the pen of the last Republic president, Abraham Lincoln. Why do we think President Trump has the bust of Abraham Lincoln on his desk? And you can see it. He always keeps it in frame when he's signing executive orders. It's because Abraham Lincoln was the last president for our republic. No orders, executive or otherwise, issued by Barack H. Obama pretending authority on the land of the American states while operating as president, quote unquote, of the all-cap United States Corporation. Not as presidents of the United States of America minor, he's not the president of the republic, are owed any performance of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Ham, or any ordinary. All plenary state grants and contractual authority evident in the Constitution for the United States of America remain in place. Subject, where am I? subject to good faith performance of the accompanying obligations and treaties. Mr. Obama is the president of a governmental service corporation under contract to provide stipulated services to the organic states and is on their payroll. He otherwise acts as a foreign dignitary representing the United States of America minor, foreign dignitary. In neither of these capacities is he allowed any granted authority to impose upon American state citizens, endanger American state property, or command mercenary forces on American state soil. I apologize for that because my computer is acting up. Where are we? We require, however veiled as federal civil service agencies. Yes. In neither of these capacities is President Obama allow any granted authority to impose upon American state citizens, endanger American state property, or command mercenary forces on American state soil, however veiled as federal civilian service agencies. We require the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I apologize for this. And General Ham to commence measures to disarm federal civilian agency personnel and to seize control of the vast stockpiles of arms which have been improperly amassed by the Department of Homeland Security, FEMA, and other agencies employed by the United States. The only federal agency allowed free egress on the land of the American states is the United States Marshal Services, and then only when their personnel are engaged in their duty to protect the United States, male and sworn as constitutional officers. All other federal agencies' personnel are limited to unarmed service until further notice. Therefore, we direct the Joint Chiefs of Staff to communicate these first two general civil orders directly to Mr. Obama. The members of the United States Congress, the administrators of all federal agencies, the members of the Supreme Court, and those acting as governors to compel their rapid understanding and cooperation. If you look at the last video I just did, go to my YouTube channel in the video section, and you will see that all these court agents known here, they were served. Attorneys, judges, marshals, senators, they've all been served. Any expense, damage allowed free egress on the, any expense or damage incurred by these organic states or any American state citizens as a result of actions undertaken by any federal agency personnel acting as armed mercenaries on American state soil will be understood as the result of violent crimes committed against the peaceful inhabitants of the land and will incur immediate judgment liquidating their assets of the International Monetary Fund and the Federal Reserve in payment of the stipulated reparations. Immediate liquidation. Remember Executive Order 138/18, signed by President Trump under his first administration, that aligns with what we see Pope Francis saying needed to be done. Let's see. Let me see if you all want me to continue reading or if I should just send you the link. Yes, they have to go. Oh, keep going? Okay. So let me get back to that link so you can see. I have to remember where I left off. I'm sorry, I don't see. Okay, any expense or damage incurred by these organic states. I apologize. Okay, let's read that one. Any expense or damage incurred by these organic states or any American state citizen as a result of actions undertaken by any federal agency personnel acting as armed mercenaries or American state soil will be understood as the result of violent crimes committed against the peaceful inhabitants of the land and will incur immediate judgment liquidating their assets of the International Monetary Fund and the Federal Reserve and they put it in all caps, in payment of the stipulated reparations. Remember, Executive Order 13818 said that they would freeze the assets of any people that were involved in crimes against humanity. I apologize, my computer keeps moving things out of place. Okay, here we are. Such crimes shall also be considered contract default, increasing the public debt subject to bounty. Any and all corporate officers of the all caps United States or any successor organizations inheriting federal service contracts who support, condone, or promote such crimes against the American states or against American citizens. Oh, this bothers me so much. I apologize. Please forgive me. My computer. Okay. Any or all corporate officers of the United States or successor organization inheriting federal service contracts who support, condone, or promote such crimes against the American states or American state citizens shall be subject to arrest and prosecution for commercial and violent crimes. All foreign officials operating as elected or appointed officials of the United States of America minor who support, condone, or promote such crimes against the American states, look at my computer, or against the American citizens shall be subject to arrest, confiscation of their assets, and deportation to Puerto Rico, Guam, or such other states as may be willing to receive them. So, anybody that committed any crimes or commercial crimes, violent crimes against us, any foreign officials operating or pretending to be elected officials or appointed officials of the United States of America minor, the Republic, our country, who support, condone, or promote any crimes against the American states or against American state citizens, because you have sovereigns and then you have citizens. Those people are subject to arrest, confiscation of their assets, and deportation. So for people that are upset about deportation, even the Pope said this would happen in 2014 when he sent this letter to President Obama. Such foreign officials include members of the American and British Bar Association, who were licensed to act as privateers against the interests of the American states and the American state citizens from 1845 to 2013 and flagrant breach of trust. All such licenses are now extinguished. Should have been extinguished around 2013. The letter was submitted in 2014. Their time is up. It's been up. Such foreign officials include members of the American and British Bar Association who were licensed to act as privateers against interests of the American states and the American state citizens from 1845 to 2013 and flagrant breach of trust. They are in flagrant. All such licenses are now extinguished. What gives him the authority to do that? Remember, he is over the United States Incorporated that incorporated themselves as a nonprofit religious organization. Members of the Bar Association are required to cease and desist assaults against the American states. Oh, look, I didn't even touch this. Don't worry. Stay encouraged. I'm gonna see here. Such a foreign members, officials, including members of the American and British Bar Association who were licensed to act as privateers against the interests of the American states and the American state citizens from 1845 to 2013 and flagrant breach of trust. All licenses are now extinguished. Members of the Bar Association are required to cease and desist assaults against the American state and American state citizens and shall be subject to arrest, confiscation, and deportation otherwise. So I know that some people don't understand that a lot of people that President Trump was speaking against were operating in a capacity that's unlawful. And I'll just keep it there. I'm not going to go into it anymore. Insomuch as corporate officers operating in the United States of America Incorporated and the all caps United States have contrived under conditions of fraud and semantic deceit to revenue the estates of the American states and living American state citizens. This is bothering me. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to have to read that all over because my computer is just glitching. Insomuch as corporate officers operating the United States of America Incorporated and the United States have contrived under conditions of fraud and semantic deceit to revenue in the estates of the American states and living American state citizens to the foreign jurisdiction of the American States of America Minor. They are found guilty of capital crimes, including acts of fraud and treason, committed between 1933 and 1945, and are condemned posthumously, in so much as elected officials operating the United States of America Minor have similarly committed war crimes against the United States and their peaceful inhabitants during the same time period. They stand condemned posthumously. No enforcement upon any American state or American state citizen is owed as a result of any act of any Congress, quote unquote, operating as the sovereign government, pretending to be the sovereign government of the United States of America Minor, nor as the board of directors of trustees. See, I didn't even touch it. Sorry about that. I apologize when I lost my place. Okay. No enforcement upon any American state or American state citizen is owed as a result of any act of any Congress operating as the sovereign government of the United States of America Minor, nor as the board of directors or board of trustees or of any incorporated entity whatsoever. All those estates and all caps estates erroneously believed to represent the American state and the American state citizens, and which were conveyed by fraud. Good Lord. Where were we? All those states and estates erroneously believed to represent the American states and the American state citizens, and which were conveyed by fraud and legal deceit to the United States of America Minor, and more recently to the city-state of the United States, are revenued without exception to the geographically defined American states and the American state citizens, where they shall remain in perpetuity as assets belonging to the rightful and lawful beneficiaries. All legal fiction entities, however structured, didn't even touch it, it happened again, and named after the American states and the American state citizens, are returned to them and their control. Ooh-wee. All legal fiction entities, however structures and named after the American states and American state citizens, are returned to them and their control, free and clear of any debt, promise, encumbrance, or obligation alleged against them as a result of false claims made in their behalf by officers of the United States of America Incorporated and the all caps United States Incorporated, or by any foreign officials operating. Where are we? The United States of America Minor, or the United States nation, city-state, falsely claiming to represent them or having jurisdiction over them. Family, I'm going to leave this in the description section. I'm going to send you, put the link in the chat as well. And I'm going to link my video where I just read the letter. I didn't do any extra talking. I just read the letter. And underneath that video, you'll see all of this information. We note that the current circumstance is part of the result of criminal acts engaged in 150 years ago, which resulted, I'll read that again. We noted that the current circumstance is in part the result of criminal acts engaged in 150 years ago, which resulted in the commercial enslavement of African Americans who were summarily claimed as chattel, backing the U.S. debt in the wake of the Civil War. Despite every act of abolition and declaration of prohibition against both peonage and slavery, it has been the policy of the United States government to enslave its citizens and to operate as a rogue state. Remember, Chief Rod Hayes told us that they didn't really end slavery. They might have ended chattel enslavement, peonage, or whatever you want to call it, of African Americans. They didn't really end it. They changed it from individual slavery to corporate enslavement of all people. So it has been the policy of the United States government to enslave its citizens and to operate as a rogue state among the nations of the world. Instead of freeing African Americans, the sum total result of the Civil War was to vastly expand public sector ownership of slaves. That means they made everybody a slave. And that was their policy. This gave rise to the outrageous and improper claims that have been made against the American states and the American state citizens that we're dealing with today. It is uniquely fitting that the Grand Army of the Republic is recalled to settle this circumstance in favor of the people. Here are different attachments, more information, more tags, etc., etc. So let me go ahead and I'll put that in the chat for you. That letter by Pope Francis was known as Motu proprio. Here it is. That's one. And let me go ahead and put my video, the link to my video in the chat as well. Thank you for being here, family. Okay. You love this content. Thank you. It's very necessary and knowledgeable. Thank you so much. If you're looking for the video on my channel, this is what it looks like. This is one of them. I have a couple of them. It's called We Were Warned Years Ago the United States Would Collapse. EBS, Motu proprio, government shutdown. I'm just reading the letter straight. I'll put that in the chat for you. I think I already did. But so that letter, Motu proprio, was the precursor. That came out in 2014 when Obama was the president. It was the precursor to what happened 10 years later. They never stood down. They never desisted. They never ceased and desist. Okay. 10 years later, the Supreme Court of the United States overturned the Chevron doctrine, stating that they had to eliminate the federal government and all their agencies. We did some digging and we discovered that there are 444 government agencies. Why do you need 444 agencies controlling your life? When they created the Department of Government Efficiency, they discovered that U.S. aid, the money that was supposed to go towards other nations to help form democracies and help them have some freedoms, that money actually did not go to those other countries, maybe a little percentage. They said maybe like less than 10%, and the rest went in to line the pockets of government officials. So it was determined then that not only was U.S. aid corrupt, but all 441, at the time it was 441 government agencies, but since then there have been more added to the list, and it was 444. Let me show it to you right quick. The Federal Register, the list of agencies, including includes each unique federal and quasi-federal unit that has legal authority to publish in the Federal Register. These agencies that you all know as the administration of this, administration of the Conference of the United States, advisory councils, agencies for international development, agriculture department, and all these departments under there, air quality national department, all these departments, all these commissions, commercial department, census bureau, all these economic bureau, minority business. Look at this. Incorporated, Mission of Fine Arts. I mean, did this make up Defense Department? All that is listed from A all the way down in alphabetical order to, look at all this, 444 government agencies, to Women's Progress Commemoration Commission from A to W. They all must be dismantled. They're all treasonous. Somebody said, why did it take 10 years? Well, because the people refused to step down. But the Grand Army of the Republic, tapped on the shoulders of President Trump and encouraged him to be the commander-in-chief of the military to take down the deep state. That's who they chose for whatever reason, maybe because he was a businessman. I don't know. But now we do see action happening. We see the shrinking of the government. We see judges fleeing. We see judges being arrested. You can look it up. We see people dying. You see resignation.info that shows thousands, tens of thousands of people that were either forced to resign, retire, or somehow came up missing. They're unalive. So I wanted to read that. Well, I chose to read that letter to you because I needed for you to see that this is real. Pope Francis, who was the head of the corporation, knew their time was up. And he said, if we don't stand down, the army would be formed to force us to stand down. We are currently under military operation. I've shown you all the book that shows that and proves that. It's a big book about that big. Okay, so where were we with NESARA? Just showing you that all of this is real. Number 4, the fourth component, we went over that this is the National Economic Security Reformation Act was created once the farmers took the United States incorporated in the Federal Reserve Central Banking System to courts and they won their claims. We went over how the part of that was to zero out all credit card, the first tenant mortgages, and other bank debt or so-called loans due to illegal banking practices and government activities. We went over how this is. NESARA would abolish income taxes. You all have seen that thousands of people have stood down. You know that the Internal Revenue Service's duties have been put under the umbrella of the United States Treasury Department. This is proof. You've heard President Trump say he's abolishing income tax. You can look up states abolish income tax. And I told you about the last two, Mississippi and Georgia, and I showed you the acts. They abolish income taxes. Why are states doing this? So President Trump is abolishing the Internal Revenue Service, which is supposed to be federal, but states under our republic are actually their own country. They have their own laws. They have sovereignty. So this is why states are making movements to eliminate income taxes, to reject central bank digital currencies. You can look that up. States have rejected CBDCs. The Supreme Court of the United States, when they overturned the Chevron doctrine and said that they were eliminating the powers of the United States Incorporated. Also, after that, came forth talking about the Supreme Court of the United States and said that state-sponsored banks can operate independently from the Federal Reserve Central Banking System, have their own charter, and issue out their own gold-backed currencies. Please don't take my word for it. Please look it up for yourself. There is an article out that says There's an economic impact of state income tax elimination. I want you to look that up. And it examines how states are phasing out income taxes. Then there's an article on AP News that says Mississippi and Kentucky aim to end personal income tax. And there's just many articles to support my claim. I'll share that screen with you. Economic impact of state income tax elimination. Mississippi and Kentucky aim to end personal income tax. How states are eliminating the personal income tax. Should all 50 states eliminate income tax? This one was published October 16th, 2025. House Resolution 119. Let's look at House Resolution 119, see what that is. Introduced by Representative Carter and Earl L. Buddy in Georgia. That was Georgia. Okay. Okay, I'll show you this one. Oh, now this isn't the first time. House Resolution 25 was actually first introduced in 2018, if I recall correctly, because I've been following this for some time. Here you go. I'm going to show you right here. To promote freedom, fairness, and economic opportunity by repealing the income tax and other taxes, abolishing the Internal Revenue Service, and enacting a national sales tax to be administered primarily by the states. Okay, that was to abolish income tax. And I showed you that many states are eliminating income taxes. Proof that the National Economic Security Reformation Act is real. I'm sorry, I apologize that it's taken so long because people are tired. Not that I have to give an apology, but I've been reporting on this and people want to know, is there any legitimacy? Increased benefits to seniors. That's one of the tenets. So we do know that President Trump has initiated a cost of living act or COLA, cost of living increase of cost of living act, COLA, which will increase the senior citizens benefit by 2.8 or 3%. And that's a boost for 75 million Americans. He didn't completely eliminate federal taxes on Social Security benefits. Instead, in his Big Beautiful Bill Act, he introduced a temporary $6,000 standard deduction increase for citizens throughout 2028. This helps many seniors avoid taxes on their benefits. But around 40% of Social Security recipients still pay federal income tax as of today. Now, I will say that this 3% boost for senior citizens isn't a whole lot when we think of cost of living, but when it is announced that the Federal Reserve has been completely dismantled, seniors would receive an exponential increase in their benefits. Not just seniors, though, everybody will, but we're speaking of seniors right now because that's one of the tenets of NESARA. And I'll have to see where I was. Let me know your thoughts so far, family. Oh, I didn't give you the 444 government agencies that must be dismantled. Here you go. There you go. Okay. Number 5, returns constitutional law to all courts and legal matters. Here you go. So remember in Motu proprio Pope Francis said that all attorneys and judges must cease and desist. In the video that I did before earlier today, I show you that attorneys and judges were served. You all also know that how many people, 8,000 judges walked out of the Department of Justice, 8,000 judges, attorneys, and court workers or Department of Justice workers. There's a reason they're walking out or stepping down, because it's been discovered that many of them were involved in nefarious activities as it relates to the Epstein situation of molesting children. And also because they have Esquire behind their names, which means that they had to pass the British Accredited Registry or the bar exam. So those people will step down. And anybody who will serve as someone upholding the law or representing people in that capacity as a lawyer will no longer be called attorney, but they will be retrained in constitutional law and be able to act as a lawyer. That's one of the tenets of the National Economic Security and Reformation Act. Now, I don't know if you all remember this, but President Trump did threaten to revoke the American Bar Association. Let me see if I can find that. Trump threatened You saw that in Motu, proprio, Pope Francis did mention the American Bar Association and the British Accredited Registry. The British Bar Association said they all both must cease and desist. President Trump, when he makes a threat, he fulfills his promises. That's one thing he's known for. So if he says that he's threatening to revoke the American Bar Association, then believe me, he's already taken steps to do that. This was in April. I'll show it to you. Again, family, thank you for joining. If you desire to see a shorter video just talking about the National Economic Security Reformation Act, where I'm only reading the act and not necessarily going point by point, but I'm just reading it, then go look at my other NESARA videos, please, just so you can have that information. Trump threatens to revoke American Bar Association's law school accreditor status. President Trump and his administration have issued an executive order that could revoke the status of the American Bar Association as the government's official law school accreditor, reported Reuters. The order was issued on the particular Wednesday, was centered on the reformation of higher education accreditation. Trump said he had tasked Education Secretary Linda McMahon with evaluating whether the American Bar Association should be suspended or terminated as an accreditor on the grounds of its unlawful diversity, equity, and inclusion requirements. I like the way they do this. They'll say, oh, it's because of diversity, equity, and inclusion, when really it's they have to get rid of the bar, period. The American Bar Association, the British Bar Association, the Credit Association typically has been known for operating in their capacity to support the British Crown and not we the people. And these attorneys are not considered lawyers because they attorn for us. They speak on our behalf. Why? Because under admiralty or maritime law, we are considered dead at sea. We are considered minors, and we're considered lost at sea and dead at sea. And when you are lost or you're a minor, you can only whisper in courts, but you may not represent yourself. You can whisper to your attorney who attorns for you and speaks on your behalf. The ABA's Council of a section of the Legal Education and Admissions to the Bar had paused the enforcement of its diversity rule in February. Nonetheless, the United States Attorney General Pam Bondi has suggested last month, this actually occurred in 2025, that the ABA, American Bar Association, could lose its accreditor status. In a letter, she told the association that she sought the repeal of its law school diversity rule and the suspension of an intended revision. So they're trying to get rid of, or they threaten to get rid of the American Bar Association. Pam Bondi is the Attorney General under the Trump administration. She's also known for stating that if they prosecuted everybody who was involved in the Epstein files, then the whole system would collapse. And as you all know from listening to economist and historian Dex Lattimore on yesterday on our last live, he said this has not only reached the American courts. Let me 1 minute. Excuse me. Excuse me, family. Oh, come on in. My grandbabies. How you doing, baby girl?
Good. I think he's gonna put some nails on me because I bought me some nail glue and some nails.
Okay, sweetheart.
Right now, the kid is in the
They're outside. Okay. So this won't only affect. This isn't only affecting America, but there are people in all professions. That's okay. All across the globe that have been involved in harming our children. They're documented in the email, flight log, and telephone logs with being associated with Epstein and harming our children. And I've done podcasts showing you how people from many African nations, Asian nations, South Central and North America have been involved, and people in Australia. Why? Because in order to attain a certain status in these countries, you had to be a part of secret societies and you had to do things with children. Excuse me.
Hi.
Bye-bye.
Kimmy, why does it say zzz?
I don't know why that's okay. Bye-bye. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye.
Call me in an hour. Okay, excuse me. Okay, thank you for your patience, family. Yeah, it's deep. It's deep. Somebody said Pam Bondi is on the list. It makes sense. So what's going to happen is a lot of these people, some people have already, that you see before you, have already been taken out, and you have new people, stand-ins, people wearing masks that are operating in the new capacity or new role. So some people might be the original people that are taking down the deep state, and then they will step down, they will be arrested. And then others are actually stand-ins and actors with masks on. Okay. Thank you for letting me know that, though. I appreciate it. What is the next tenet of the National Economic Security and Reformation Act? Return us the constitutional law in all legal or lawful matters. Let's see if I have anything here. Some states have allowed for people to serve as an apprenticeship and then operate as a lawyer instead of passing the bar, the British Accredited Registry. So I told you, states are operating in their sovereign capacity. Now they're like, as long as you've done an apprenticeship for a certain amount of time and you understand and have been trained in constitutional law, you'll be able to serve. What is the next tenet is that it will establish new presidential elections within 120 days after there is a NESARA announcement. Next, they will monitor elections and prevent unlawful election activities of special interest groups. That's number 7. Number 8, the 8th tenet of NESARA is that they will create a new United States Treasury currency that some people are saying is the rainbow currency backed by precious metals. Now, we already know that the Supreme Court of the United States stated in 2024, the summer of 2024, that state-sponsored banks can operate independently from the Federal Reserve Central Banking System, have their own charter, and issue out their own gold-backed currencies. So that aligns with tenet number 8. Can you all see that this is happening in real time? This is a wonderful and amazing time to be alive. Create new United States Treasury rainbow currency. New United States currency. That means they're going to get rid of the USD, the fiat dollar. This is why BRICS was formed. One of the reasons: Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, to encourage all these countries to stop trading with the United States dollar and use their own gold-backed currencies for trade. You all know I've been through it many times, that what made the United States Incorporated, the leader, have financial and economic hegemony, was that they had an agreement with Saudi Arabia to protect the Saudi kingdom in exchange for their oil, and thereby force all other nations to get oil only from Saudi Arabia using the United States dollar. That also is what made the United States dollar the world reserve currency. Well, once BRICS started to grow, because Vladimir Putin in 2022 cleaned out the underground, exposed the underground military bases and all the nefarious activities that happened in Ukraine. When that happened, Biden, who was the then acting resident or so-called president, put sanctions on Vladimir Putin for the Ukraine war. Putin then said, I don't care that you put sanctions on me. I'm going to stop trading with the United States dollar, and I'm going to use my own Russian ruble for trade. And in 2022, his currency became the strongest performing currency in the world. Then he went to the BRICS conference, which was then comprised of Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. That's what they're known. That's what that stands for. And he told them to use his Russian ruble first, and that's what helped him to become his country's currency be the world reserve currency. And then he inspired them to use their own currency for trade. He said, not only do I want you, BRICS bloc, to do so, but I'm going to entice other nations to join. The first one that they tapped on the shoulders of was Saudi Arabia. And then BRICS became known as SAL BRICS. That was monumental because, again, what made the US dollar the world reserve currency and gave the United States Incorporated financial and economic hegemony was that agreement between the corporation, the US Inc., and Saudi Arabia. That agreement will protect the Saudi kingdom in exchange for oil, and will make everybody get oil from you, and they had to use the United States dollar. Once Saudi Arabia joined BRICS and became known as SAL BRICS, since the BRICS coalition became known as SAL BRICS, that ended the agreement. That collapsed most of the buying power of the dollar. That is when the United States dollar began to plummet very, very quickly. I mean, we already were in debt, so it was plummeting then. We already was printing a lot of money through quantitative easing, but then Saudi Arabia joined BRICS. In 2022, and definitely by 2023, other states started joining. So it was known, it went from BRICS to SAL BRICS and then to BRICS Plus. By the end of 2022 and the beginning of 2023, 85% of the global population had joined BRICS. 85% of the population has stopped trading, of the global population has stopped trading with the United States dollar and started using their own currencies backed by gold. Here in America, I've shown you the article many times. You can look it up. The Sound Money Defense League published that as of 2023, 45 states had reclaimed silver and gold as money here in America. How did they do that? Well, they repealed or removed the sales taxes from the sales of precious metals. When you remove the sales taxes from the precious metals, then you are acknowledging precious metals as money, because the states understand and overstand that according to the Constitution, you can't tax money. And the only thing that can be defined as money, according to Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, is gold. The dollar is defined as a fixed weight of silver and a fixed weight of gold. So states reclaim their power, start standing in their power and passing legislation, doing what Trump is doing. Trump is using the tools of the deep state, executive orders, to take them down. States are passing bills and legislations to reclaim silver and gold as money by removing or repealing the state sales taxes from the sales of precious metals. You can see an article that was published by King's World and this was in February of 2023, that said the world is hurtling back towards gold as money. This is why gold is back on an increase. It's over $5,000. Why silver is going up in value. At one time, it had reached $120 per ounce. Why? Because silver and gold are now classified as money behind the scenes. It's not even behind the scenes anymore. This isn't even conspiracy theories. This is true. Remember, I said one of the tenets of NESARA is to go back for the United States Treasury Department to issue out new currency or treasury notes backed by precious metals. So first you had to repatriate your gold back from the Vatican, make sure that Trump had to make sure when he did the audit at Fort Knox and other places, make sure the gold was there. Some people say the gold wasn't. Some people say it has been returned. You had to do all that. You had to make sure the Supreme Court of the United States took the power away from the government, because the government, when you think of gold and silver mines, the government has shut down a lot of gold and silver mines. When they took us off the gold standard, they shut down mining operations because they said gold and silver, those are relics. You don't need them anymore. They would not allow that money to be released or the gold to be mined. Well, when the Supreme Court overturned the United States, what did that mean? That means that now the United States Incorporated doesn't have the power to say you can't mine silver and gold. If you wanted to mine silver and gold, you had to go through a whole bunch of red tape. Now that the power of the United States Incorporated has shrunk and been revoked, those mines are now open. That is the silver and gold that's going to back up the new United States Treasury. This again is why the Supreme Court of the United States, after they repealed or removed the power of the government by overturning Chevron doctrine, said now state-sponsored banks can operate independently from the Federal Reserve banking system. Let's see if I can find that for you. Here you go. I'm going to show you. I'll prove it. Supreme Court ruling. State-sponsored banks can disband from the Federal Reserve System and issue their own currency. When you read the article, it'll tell you that the currency must be gold backed. This is why all banks had to be Basel III compliant. What is Basel III compliancy? You all know it. It means they had to recognize gold as a tier 1 asset. What is a tier 1 asset? Money. It meant they had to recognize gold as money. Why do banks, whatever banks that remain, because many of them have collapsed, and many more will collapse because banks will be transferred into wealth management centers. They have to recognize gold, according to Basel III compliancy, as a tier 1 asset, meaning no longer will they recognize the United States dollar as money, but they will recognize gold as money. The second part of Basel III compliancy that a lot of people may not be familiar with is that banks have to also have tier 2 foreign reserve notes or tier 2 assets. Tier 2 assets are foreign currencies. Banks have to recognize gold as a tier 1 asset. This is why banks accumulated gold in record numbers between central banks of all nations between 2022 and 2026. You can look that up. These countries repatriated their gold back from the Vatican. They work with other countries to return their stolen money. They passed legislation to repeal or remove state taxes from silver and gold. And the state banks disbanded from the Federal Reserve central banking system. Beautiful. I can't see how long I've been on here. Let me not stay. It's all backed by power, no matter how you spin it. Thank you so much. Sister Janine, our monitor, asked that you hit the like button, family. Okay, enough of that. Did you need to see the article that says 45 states repealed or removed the state taxes from the sales of precious metals? There was one article I found that said 46 did, because New Jersey was the 46th state to repeal or remove the state sales tax. I'm proving that the National Economic Security and Reformation Act is actually in effect right now. This is why there are goldbacks. Why do you think that now all of a sudden people are talking about goldbacks? When I started talking about in 2014, when I started talking about gold in 2014, and then I started talking about sped it up and really started talking about it because I was living in Ghana and I saw people mining gold. I started talking about gold in 2014. And I said, there's a book I had stumbled upon. It had just been printed and published that year called Africa is China's Newest Continent. I was like, something's going on with gold, 2014. At that time, there were 13 states that had legalized silver and gold as legal tender. Then in 2017, when I started reporting, it was still 13 states. But then each year, more and more states started reclaiming silver and gold as money by removing or repealing this taxes from silver and gold. Then, and at that time in 2017, I said, get gold Arum notes. That's what goldbacks are called. Gold Arum notes. That's 24 karat gold pressed onto the note. If you're part of our private group, you already know all about gold Arum notes. We've been collecting them. Those gold Arum notes can be used right now to purchase local goods and services, to pay any taxes. We've shown people where you can go to ensure or to see which merchants in your states actually accept goldbacks right now. These precious metals companies would not be issuing out goldbacks if this wasn't the case that we're moving to the gold standard. You can look at on AppMex, jmbullion.com, SD Bullion, goldback.com. Go to your local coin dealer. All of these places will sell goldbacks. Goldbacks is a 24 karat gold notes that you can use to purchase local goods and services. It doesn't matter if you get a Florida goldback or a Nebraska goldback or a Nevada goldback. You can use a goldback from one state all across all states to buy local goods and services. Where is that article? Let me show you. That says states have taken their power back to legalize silver and gold as money. Thank you, Sister Amy, for joining. Thank you, Sister Janine, for recognizing her. That's the wrong thing. Thank you so much. I missed you, sister. I didn't see where you joined. Thank you for joining. You had to say hello. Hi, Sister Amy. Oh, God bless you. Okay, here you go. I'm trying to look for that. Just in case you want to see this yourself. State laws can help restore gold and silver as money, and it talks about how they remove taxes from the sales of precious metals. You can go down further and click on your state and see which laws were passed to repeal or remove taxes from precious metals in your state. Whoops. Hey, babe, come on in. Here you go. It's right there. All right. And we'll speed this up so everybody can go back to their scheduled plans. What is the next tenet of the National Economic Security Reformation Act? Again, somebody asked me under my last live that I did with my son to talk about NESARA. So I'm doing that here. I'm going to find that next. Okay. Initiates new Treasury bank system in alignment with constitutional law. That's the 9th tenet. So you all know that there have been economic reforms, there have been banking reforms that says all banks must be transparent, that banks can no longer steal your money, there will be no more bank bailouts. You all know that banks also are collapsing and that banks will be transferred into wealth management centers because banks are a part of admiralty and maritime law. So they will They will be done away with. That banks like water banks, river banks, water bank, all of it is in alignment with each other. Somebody told me courts are banks as well. So we're going to eliminate that. Initiate a whole new treasury so-called banking system in alignment with constitutional law. I've shown you many articles that said that banks are collapsing and that banks will be turning into wealth management centers, and you can also Google that. Next, the next component is eliminate the Federal Reserve System. This is why the Supreme Court of the United States in the summer of 2024 said that state-sponsored banks can operate independently from the Federal Reserve central banking system. They are allowing state-sponsored banks to be sovereign, to issue out their own gold-backed currency, to accumulate gold in record numbers, to back up the currency, to have foreign reserve notes there too, because these wealth management centers are now going to serve you. They're going to teach you how to manage your wealth. They're going to give you a single family office. They're going to help you with investments. Whatever work or help you need, these new wealth management centers are going to help you with, if you desire to have them. This is a part of the new quantum financial system, a sentient system that was given to us by our extraterrestrial friends and family members. They will monitor people's activities and make sure that they're not selling and buying children. This is why Bitcoin is collapsing, because that's what it was used for. And this new system that's in alignment with constitutional law, you'll be able to use gold and silver as money, or the new currency backed by gold and silver, or digital coins, digital assets, which we're already using so-called a digital system now. So you can see that it's happening already, that we have a new system. But that's why all of these banks are collapsing. I won't go into detail because I've done it so many times, but you can look it up and see that banks are collapsing. We had 5 major banks to collapse around 2022, 2023. And if you look up the FDIC, they show you all these banks, many, many banks that have collapsed over the last 5 years. And they're still collapsing. We just had a major bank to collapse in January. Was it a Chicago bank? On that same day, because they're saying we had a financial black swan event. A major bank collapsed. Stocks plummeted. Silver and gold plummeted. Bitcoin plummeted. And it was something else. All in one day. They said that was the financial black swan event. What else? So we're talking about eliminating the Federal Reserve System. Representative Thomas Massey from Kentucky in March 2026, he's done this before, but again in March 2026, he introduced House Resolution 1846, which will eliminate the Federal Reserve Board of Governors, and it will also repeal the 1913 Federal Reserve Act. Most of you already know that the Federal Reserve central banking system is already defunct, insolvent. And since state-sponsored banks can disband from it, I showed you the Supreme Court of the United States already ruled this, and they can disband from the Federal Reserve System. They can have their own gold-backed currencies. They have their own charter, but there's no need for the Federal Reserve central banking system. See if I can find House Resolution 1846 for you all. Was it House Resolution 1846? Yes, HR 1846. Let me make sure I got it right. Yep, here you go. I am supporting my claims. Oh, Bitcoin was an Epstein setup. Thank you for mentioning that. I'll put your comment up in a minute. HR 1846, Federal Reserve Board Abolition Act. See that? 119th Congress. Representative Thomas Massey from Kentucky. What I'm going to always make sure I do is support my claim and prove what I'm saying. Even if we're unsure about it or it may not be deemed as fact, when you say something, this is what you learn in research. You're supposed to triangulate, mean you're supposed to look across at least 3 different references and support your claims with at least 3 references. That gives you more credibility. There you go. So again, what was House Resolution 1846? It was a bill that was introduced by Representative Thomas Massey in March of 26, and he actually did this, I want to say 2018 as well, to eliminate the Federal Reserve Board of Governors and to repeal the 1913 Federal Reserve Act. Tell me what you all think about this so far. Can you see the proof? Does it look like it's credible information that I'm showing you here? Do you need more? Let me know what your thoughts are. Again, we're going over the tenets of the National Economic Security Reformation Act, and the global version of that is the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act. Eliminate the Federal Reserve System. Restore, number 11, the 11th tenet of NESARA is to restore financial privacy. This is why many people have been saying this new quantum financial system will read your energy. It will read your energy to make sure it's only you accessing your funds. And some people say because it's sentient, it can read our intentions as we're making purchases. And the reason why they're doing that is to ensure nobody's doing things to buy children, guns, drugs, people, mainly our babies and our children. If anybody has a problem with being monitored, I do understand that nobody wants to be surveilled, but I would suggest and offer to you that this may be the best way to ensure that no nefarious activities occur. There'll be no more buying and selling of our secrets. And more importantly, it's about the babies, in my strong opinion. Make sure they're not harmed. And this is what has been allowed to happen all across the world. They use Bitcoin because Bitcoin was a way that it wasn't centralized. You use the United States dollar, use credit cards, you can be traced. Bitcoin was their own monetary system that was decentralized from mainstream monetary system or banking system. Number 12, they will retrain all judges and attorneys in constitutional law. We've already gone over how the judges and attorneys right now pass the bar. The British Accredited Registry, they have Esquire behind their names. You're not even supposed to serve the people or create laws. Many of them go on to work in law in some capacity or work in so-called service and work in the court system. You're not supposed to have any dealings with law. Write laws, create laws, support laws, represent anything lawful. If you have Esquire behind your name, meaning you may not have a title of nobility and create laws or serve we the people. Because if you have a title of nobility, that means you're working with or for the British Crown. Unfortunately, a lot of these people went beyond working for the British Crown. A lot of the judges and attorneys, it is coming out, have been the head of the drug cartel. Many of them have been involved in or the head of child trafficking and were involved in harming, raping, assemblymen, that's pig Latin, children. So many of them have been arrested. Not only that, some of them have also done, now this is public knowledge, you can Google this. Some of them have been arrested for harvesting criminals, mainly immigrant criminals. And I'm talking about people that committed violent crimes. Many judges have let them go. There was one judge that was arrested for hiding somebody out in their chambers, an illegal, unlawful immigrant that committed a violent crime. Some people get really, really testy and touchy when you talk about immigration, but you had MS-13 gang members, you had human traffickers, you had child sex traffickers, you had all type of illegal, unlawful people on our soil who have committed crimes. Why is it that people get offended when you say those people should be deported? It's like they want children to be harmed. I don't understand the comprehension of people. Oh my gosh, how could you support Trump? Oh my gosh, how could you support the removal? And I explicitly say anybody that harms children, that disrespects our country, that disrespects the American people, that wave their own flag arrogantly, flagrantly on our soil while they're protesting and speaking against our Constitution should be removed. Why is that a problem? Because you're not going to do that. They don't do that in their own country. Talk against their government. This is why I'm missing something. I've been abroad to different countries. You do not speak out against, not openly, the people in power, this whole freedom of speech that's in America. You don't do that in a lot of other nations. Your head would be cut off. And I know what I'm talking about. If you're from another country, you are hesitant about putting out your flag. In fact, I haven't seen people do that in African countries, not even in South and Central America. Maybe they do it, but I haven't seen, and they definitely don't protest and speak against the government and the people. A lot of people don't understand or understand that MS-13 gang members infiltrated the police department. MS-13 gang members took control of major cities and housing authorities and housing places, apartment complexes, neighborhoods, drug cartel. Who do you think is running some of the prison gangs? Drug cartel from different countries. Yes, some from here in the Americas and from other nations. This isn't even any secret information now. But a lot of judges have colluded with many gang members, cartel members, because they're all, unfortunately, a part of one big secret society. And it starts at the local level or micro level when you join Greek fraternities in college. If you desire to escalate, you're going to go beyond the Greek fraternity, beyond a white Greek, so-called white Greek fraternity, or beyond a so-called Black Greek fraternity. We won't even talk about how many people are coming forward and saying they left the Greek fraternity, both white Greek, especially Black Greek fraternities, once they became more spiritual and they start to acknowledge that their behavior, sleeping with, going through a whole bunch of people in order to get initiated, being hazed and hazing other people, taking bribes and giving bribes, and worshiping different gods, and saying that they will have that they have an allegiance to each other above their allegiance to the Creator. People are stepping out of those secret society members right now. You can look up all the videos on YouTube. They're saying that their heart has been pricked, that they had to do a lot of secret stuff. Then you escalate. If you desire to move up in your profession, you join a Boule if you're classified as Black. You join the Eastern Stars if you're classified as a Black woman. You join the Freemasons if you're Black or classified as Black or white. You join Skull and Bones and many other secret societies. What do they do in those? Why is it so secret? Why are they meeting in lodges and nobody else allowed to go? The information that they give and do and share is not just sacred, but it's secret for a reason. You even have pastors that are a part of Masonic lodges and that participate in these rituals. Some of the rituals include going and grabbing a man off the street, blindfolding him, bringing him in a lodge, allegedly beating him up while he's blindfolded, forcing him to perform fellatio on you, and maybe even doing anal sex on him. And they are told, this is the way we want you to keep the people in your community blind, raped, dumb, and defenseless. And then they release the person right back on the street, allegedly. So a lot of these people that are involved in secret societies are now stepping down. A lot of lawyers, attorneys, judges, remember the Department of Defense had 8,000 people step down, walk out. People are being arrested. People are dying suddenly. Jesse Jackson's not the only one. You're going to see a whole lot of people, so-called leaders, religious leaders, monks. They're all involved. Entertainers, governors, presidents, prelates. But they were being arrested in 2017 all the way up to 2023. I showed you that in resignation.info. And some of us actually saw military tribunals on c-vine.net in 2018. I saw some of them. Military tribunals are, by the way, being held right now. And even in the letter I read to you, I showed you Motu proprio. Pope Francis said that these people had to cease and desist, or else the Grand Army of the Republic will arrest them. Thank you for your attention, family. Thank you so much for your comments. What's the next one? Cease all aggressive United States military action worldwide. We know that the military is leaving some of these places. Iraq, I know we had a lot of military men and women leave, and they also took their equipment. There may be some military movement still, or people on the grounds in other countries, but the part of NESARA is to cease all aggressive United States government military action after we clean up the deep state. We're currently under military law right now. Number 14, we will establish peace throughout the world. We've been saying this since 2017. Here we are, fast forward to 2026, and President Trump has created a board of peace. As of date, the last time I looked, a couple of days ago, 28 countries had joined a board of peace. This aligns with Project Sandman that said that 209 nations had agreed behind the scenes to cease military action and agreed to world peace. The other component of Project Sandman was to all of them stop trading with the United States dollar and use their own local currency. People are now calling Project Sandman Operation Sandman. Now they're saying it's 100 nations. When I started reporting on it, was 209 nations that were involved. You can look it up at Project Sandman, Operation Sandman. Many, many people are reporting on that now. The BRICS strategy to collapse the American dollar, Project Sandman. It's one article. Operation Sandman, unveiling a global change to the United States dollar. Let's see if I can bring that up. Here you go. Project Sandman. Operation Sandman, unveiling a global change. Project Sandman, U.S. dollar collapse agreement. And look, these videos and this information came out 2023, 2024. I was talking about this in 2017. So when I said this was a part of the National Economic Security and Reformation Act, back then we didn't have formal announcements of BRICS and people dropping the dollar. But now we see that that's happening on a large scale. And I'm so excited. So President Trump created the Board of Peace. He said that would replace the United Nations. President Trump also removed the United States from 66 international organizations. And he said the reason why he did that is for us to establish ourselves as a sovereign nation. And he said that those international organizations did not serve we the people. 15, the 15th component of the National Economic Security Reformation Act it would initiate the first phase of worldwide prosperity distribution of vast wealth, which has been accumulating for many decades. The law requires that the farmers' claims be paid out first because they were the ones that are responsible for NESARA being a law. And then the general public will receive funds. So if you Google have worldwide prosperity funds been initiated or have worldwide prosperity funds gone into effect, you will see yes. Not only have they gone into effect, they will listen. Here's one publication that says, yes, several major international initiatives aim to foster global prosperity. Thank you so much. Somebody just sent me a Cash App blessing. I appreciate you. Several major international initiatives aim to foster global prosperity by reducing poverty, improving business environments, and enhancing financial stability. Key programs include the World Bank Improving Business Environment for Prosperity, or the IBEP, United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, the SDG, and the Atlantic Council's Freedom and Prosperity Center. There's another one. Let me see if I can find that other. And it did go on to the World Bank IBEF, focus on strengthening business regulations in 9 middle-income countries to boost composition and share prosperity. The United Nations Development Program works globally, the UNDP, to eradicate poverty, reduce inequalities, and accelerate human development. And the Atlantic Coast Freedom and Prosperity Center analyzes the link between economic freedoms. And I don't see what else it was because I didn't copy all of that. Now, what else? There's more. I'll bring it up for you. More economic programs, global prosperity programs, okay? We already talked about Atlantic Council Freedom and Prosperity Center analyzes the link between economic freedom and prosperity to support development. You have the MIT Solve Economic Prosperity Challenge, aims to create financial opportunities for underserved populations through technology. You have Prosperity Now, which focuses on expanding financial stability and asset building, primarily in the United States, but with a broader mission. You have the Legatum Institute, which produces the Legatum Prosperity Index to help nations build pathways to prosperity. These initiatives often target financial inclusion, job creation, and policy reform to assist developing nations and vulnerable populations all across the globe. Now that you know that these exist, what we must do or need to do if we desire to access any of these funds is to avail ourselves of the opportunity, because there have been many, many global initiatives like opportunity zones that have been available. That's part of prosperity programs. It's part of programs to help certain areas in the country or abroad to actually become more economically sustainable, to create jobs. And some people will say, oh, that's only for white people, white business. That's not true. Look up the Mosaic group in Miami, Florida. That's a group classified as Black. What needs to happen is people, now that you know the information is there, people should avail themselves. We should avail ourselves of the opportunity to utilize the funds to help our communities and our nations, whether you're here locally in Florida, in any of the states here in the Americas, or you're somewhere else across the globe. We just talked about a few prosperity programs. We haven't even mentioned the St. Germain Trust, Rodriguez Trust, the Ancient Dragon Society and their trust, the King Solomon's Trust. So many trusts, so many funds that are available to put massive wealth into the community. Global prosperity programs. That's just a few that I've named. And I think I did report on this one that I'm going to talk about right now, last summer, I think I only talked to the private group about that. There is a so-called secret trust of $150 trillion that they're saying President Trump is going to release, in which he is. But we owe it to the Supreme Court of the United States for overturning the Chevron doctrine for these funds to be released. Where is this $150 trillion coming from? It's coming from the gold and silver mines, the mines that were shut down by the United States government once we came off the gold standard. And also the United States government made it very, very hard for anybody to mine, even if it's on your own land. You had to go through a whole bunch of red tape. You had to go through courts. That's why we're the judges and attorneys. That's how they colluded. And basically, you could not access your own land, the silver and gold and copper that was on your own land or on the mines. But now that the Supreme Court has overturned the Chevron doctrine and eliminated the power and the stronghold that the government had on these lands and on these mines, that money in those mines can be released. That's where the $150 trillion come from. Now, Jim Rickards, who's a financial commentator and an economist, was the first one to report this. He worked on Wall Street for about 35 years. And he said in March 2025, so I reported last spring, not last summer, that the United States had an untouched $150 trillion national trust fund or endowments waiting to be tapped into. And a lot of that money was attached to the silver and gold mines. He said this was thanks to a key provision in Title 30 of the U.S. Code. The rumor spread across multiple platforms once Jim Rickards said that. But I dug deep into it. I not only realized that a lot of this money was attached to gold mines, but then I went into figuring out where those gold mines are. A lot of them are actually in the western part of the country and in Texas, the ones that could not be touched, that now can be touched. So that's $150 trillion. It's probably more than that. But then you have the Sovereign Wealth Fund. The Sovereign Wealth Fund is comprised of precious metals, silver, gold, copper, palladium, platinum, other precious metals, stocks and bonds, tariffs, real estate, arable land, what else? Rare earth minerals, and bonds. That's it, bonds. Yes. That's what the sovereign wealth funds comprise of. First thing Donald Trump did when he came on board January 2025 was to create the Sovereign Wealth Fund. And he said these funds would be used for we the people, for we the American people, for prosperity programs, and to rebuild the infrastructure and to invest. Look up the Sovereign Wealth Fund. It's one of the first things I reported on as soon as he came back. And he said, I'm creating a sovereign wealth fund because our people, the American people, have not been, and American citizens have not been taken care of. But there are other countries that have sovereign wealth funds. And then one of the things that these nations do with the sovereign wealth fund is they ensure that each person in their country has money every single month in their account. Some people call it a universal basic income. But oil-rich nations like Qatar have been doing this. They make sure that since they make so much money from oil, they give it to the people. This is something that now NESARA will ensure happens. And that's why President Trump created the Sovereign Wealth Fund. Okay, I'm going to show it to you. Here's one definition of Sovereign Wealth Fund. Where is that? I want to go here. A sovereign wealth fund or sovereign investment fund is a state-owned investment. I love that states have taken their power back, that invest in real. So he's got a national sovereign wealth fund. Then you have states that have them. Okay. The Sovereign Wealth Fund, SWF, or Sovereign Investment Fund, is a state-owned investment fund that invests in real and financial assets, such as stocks, bonds, real estate, precious metals, or in alternative investments, such as private equity funds or hedge funds. They didn't mention rare earth minerals. That's in there too. Sovereign wealth funds invest globally. Most SWFs or sovereign wealth funds are funded by revenues from commodity exports or from foreign exchange reserves. One of the first things President Trump did again in January 2024 was create a sovereign wealth fund. You can look at my videos in January and you'll see that I reported on that. Trump creates sovereign. I'm not going to pull that video up, but I'm going to see if I see an article on it. Here you go. I'll put it in the chat for you. Trump Sovereign Wealth Fund. Kiplinger. What is it and how does it work? Trump signed an executive order that puts in motion plans for a United States Sovereign Wealth Fund. Here's what a sovereign wealth fund is and what it does. He directed the Treasury Secretary and the Commerce Secretary to compile a plan within 90 days for creating a U.S. sovereign wealth fund. They tell you why it's a big deal. They tell you what it is. They give countries a potentially bigger return than they get by simply holding their excess funds in government bonds. Mostly through though certainly not all of the world's largest sovereign wealth funds are funded by oil and gas exports. And it goes on to give you examples, what they do, et cetera, et cetera. Just want you to see that there are prosperity programs that are in effect. There are initiatives that have been created, and there are ways that we can access these funds. Now that we know the information, we can then do the research and figure out how to access them. I was actually a part of a group, that's involved with opportunity zones. You can join their Zoom calls, go to their meetings. You just have to know that these programs exist and avail yourself of the opportunity and participate. You don't even have to have money to go to the meetings, but you know what? The moment you make up your mind, the universe conspires to assist you. So when you say, okay, now that I know these sovereign wealth funds exist, and now that I know there are prosperity funds and enormous prosperity programs, I know where they are, I know what they're called. I'm going to do the research and I'm going to now access those funds. So that was initiate first phase of worldwide prosperity funds to distribute vast wealth. Also, I want you to look in your city, because in all major cities in America, they're actually doing renovations and creating projects, renovations downtown, creating projects. They have initiatives all across the country, maybe in other countries too. Somebody told me that last summer, and I was like, oh, it's not here in Jacksonville. They were like, you didn't look it up. How are you going to tell me it's not? I said, well, I didn't notice it. When I looked up what's happening in Jacksonville, they're building beautification projects, doing all type of activities for the people, activities on the beach, activities in the park, free activities, beautifying downtown. Went to Tennessee, same things happen. I travel and I say, oh my gosh, just because I don't know it doesn't mean it's not existing, but now we know it. Okay, we're almost done. Release enormous sums of money for humanitarian purposes. Some people say that's what the RV is for, the revaluation of currencies. When you go to get an exchange on your currency, you have the money, but there are also humanitarian projects and programs. There was something called Global Settlements and Prosperity Programs of the 90s that a lot of people are involved in. It was secret. So the government allowed people to sign up for. There were a lot of groups, a lot of church organizations, spiritual organizations, a lot of personal, professional development groups that signed up for these prosperity programs to create humanitarian programs. These people had to be vetted. They had to have background checks, and then the government would come and sign off on their programs. Gold Star Mother Susan Price is one person who was vetted by the United States government and the Trump administration. The then United States Secretary of Housing and Urban Development, who is Dr. Ben Carson, approved her program, her project. That's why she was able to teach us how to create humanitarian projects on my channel. On my show, she helped many people, literally hundreds, over 200. Didn't even ask for money. Now she's not doing that work anymore because she's moved on to like bigger things. She was endorsed by President Trump as a Gold Star mother. She endorsed him as the president. A Gold Star mother is a mother. A Gold Star parent is a parent of a deceased or a fallen soldier. Her son's name is Aaron Kennebec. He died in the line of duty, releasing children, fighting against generals, trying to end corruption within the system. He passed away. So you can look at my videos, but please don't email her because she's too busy. Because she took a whole several weeks out of a summer to help the Soul Tribe here create humanitarian projects because she was vetted. 17 enables the release of new technologies such as free energy devices, pollution cleanups, and sonic machines, as well as med beds. Their med beds have already been released, at least here. There's some in Orlando. There's some here in Jacksonville, Florida. And the gentleman who owns them is going to come on our show as soon as he gets everything up and running and offer the service here. And 18, NESARA reduces the work week to 20 hours per week. And 21, it gives everyone ages 21 and over, some say tens of thousands, some say 100,000 per month for 11 years or up to $20 million each into a non-interest bearing account. We don't know exactly how much, we just know. And we know this happens in other nations. It's not just oil rich nations. It happened here in the Americas. When I was living in California, there's a small place called, I think it's Richmond, California. There was a brother who was a mayor. Was he a mayor in a certain city? Was it Richmond? I can't remember where it was. Outside of Sacramento, who gave every person in his area a certain amount of money every single month. I was like, oh my God, that was in 2018. I can't think of his name. But this is happening, and this is an American state, but it happens in other nations. Some people ask, how can you have that type of money, tens of thousands of dollars per each person over 21? Well, we all have what's called a TDA account. Y'all know about TDA accounts, right? Treasury Direct accounts. You all have trusts. We're all trust fund babies. You all have a trust. Your birth certificate, remember we talked about that in the beginning of the show, was turned into a bond. It accrued interest as it was circulating on the New York Stock Exchange and other stock exchanges, accruing money. That is your money. Hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars that you will have access to. That basically, they're going to let you have access to your trust. If you know about the TDA accounts, you know that some people at some level have purported that they were able to access those trust funds. But as people, and these were people, you had to go through a certain process. As people started accessing their TDA accounts, Treasury Direct accounts, they made it very, very hard for people and they limited access. But this is going to happen where you will have access to your Treasury Direct account and you will have access to your trust fund. And that, my darlings, concludes the podcast on enormous wealth being injected into the global economy and prosperity programs that are in effect. They are in effect. There are many. You can Google it right now and see all the initiatives and see the programs. You can attend some of them. I mean, you can start right now with opportunity zones and other type of prosperity programs or opportunities to create programs to do some development in your organization or development in your city or your state. These things are happening right now. They're in effect. They're in motion. Another thing about enormous funds being released, President Trump released some frozen funds to the states for education. This is huge, because releasing funds for the states means now you can homeschool, you have money for access to, you can access this money to homeschool or do private school education. And it allows you to separate from the public school system. So when people say President Trump isn't doing anything, or the military isn't doing anything, or the states aren't doing anything, and this isn't a real thing, I would encourage you to dig deeper and to look for the opportunities. When you have, and when we talked about an abundance mindset the other day, when you have an abundance mindset and you're positive and you know that there are opportunities for you, you know there's passive wealth, you know there are resources, you know there's money, you know you're rich, you know you're abundant, you know that you are a child of God, you understand and understand that you are God's, which means we're all co-creators. Then you start looking for the opportunities, you start looking for the wealth. Look, Donald Trump to release billions, let me move that up, in frozen funds. Here's what you should know. This was July 26, 2025, published by Newsweek. We know that it's been released because Tennessee, 2 years ago, no, that was in 2023. Tennessee said, we're not working with the United States Department of Education anymore. We don't want any money from the United States Department of Education. We have our own money, our own state funds. Florida now gives each person $7,000 to $10,000, whether it be in tax break or funds, so that you can educate your own child. You can either use it for homeschooling or you can use it for private schools. More than $5 billion in frozen education grant funding to the states will be released in the coming weeks. This was in the summer of 2025, according to the Department of Education. The money, which was used to found a range of initiatives, including teacher training and English language programs, was suspended by the Trump administration on June 30th, pending a review by the Federal Office of Management and Budget. It goes on to talk more about how they contacted the Department of Education, because you see, the Department of Education is a part of the deep state. They're part of the government that has to be downsized because the Chevron doctrine was overturned by the Supreme Court of the United States. The Department of Education was funding the public schools. When you fund the public schools, it goes into what you need to know. When you fund the public schools, you control the curriculum, you control the propaganda, you control everything. You control the programming. And this is what Tennessee said in 2023. We don't want any funds from the United States Department of Education. We have our own money, because we don't need anybody telling us how to educate our children. We don't want anybody propagandizing them or telling them about sex or gender or any racial anything. This Tennessee said that should be left up to the parents. They said no longer we don't want the money from the United States Department of Education, because we don't want them to control our curriculum. We don't want them to control social programs in the schools. We don't want anything to do with standardized testing, because those standardized tests are culturally inappropriate for some cultures. They are culturally biased for specific cultures, and they do not determine whether or not a person can succeed in school or in college and higher education. Tennessee led the way in 2023. Now more states are doing that. But Trump took that frozen money that was only allocated for the United States Department of Education, unfroze it, and released it to the states. So now states have that money. States have other monies. And you and I, now that we know that the states are sovereign, can work at the state level to utilize those funds to educate our own children, to create schools, to create preschools, to create daycares, whatever, or just to educate them at home. This is what I'm saying is, when you have an abundance mentality and you know that there's abundance on this planet, and you know that things are working in your favor, and you know no weapon formed against you shall prosper, and you know that is the Creator's goodwill and intent for you to excel and prosper even as your soul prospers, when you know that the earth is the Creator's, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, when you know you were created to enjoy wealth, when you realize and know that you have come here to experience wealth and to utilize wealth to help humanity and to help your future generations, meaning your posterity, when you know this and you come to that awareness, whether you were born with this knowledge and awareness or you come to it, the universe will bow to your command. The multiverse will bow to your wishes. Because I've always known this, because that I'm here for wealth, because it started with an understand and understand my name. When I understood and understand the meaning of my name as a small child, then I knew what my purpose was. Then I said, okay, so my purpose is not to just have wealth, but to teach it, to encourage it. And that could be wealth in terms of your health, wealth in terms of wealth, having a good moral compass, values, integrity, financial wealth, trust, assets, community. All that is what I consider wealth. When you know this, when you know that you have dominion, all power in heaven and earth is given unto me, is what the ascended master known as Jesus or Isis said. When you know this, you look for opportunities fall in your lap, you align with them, you attract all this information, and then you can avail yourself of it and you create the reality that you desire and deserve. Having said that, family, I'm so grateful that you joined me today. I am so appreciative. Yes, President Trump did mention free college as well. He has something else. What was it called? American Education, American Institute, the American College, free education, which some countries already do. Thank you all for those of you that sent me a Cash App. My phone is not right here. If you desire to donate, you may. I have a Cash App at $ Mama Kia 13. I also have PayPal, whatever, if you desire to. If you desire to join the private group where we go in depth on investments, you are more than welcome to do that. Somebody had mentioned yesterday that the private group is gold. The last private group session, we talked about the developments in Iraq, Zimbabwe, Venezuela, and what's another one? Vietnam, as well as other things. We talked about alternative money. We talked about, and I've released a video too that talks about all the countries that have unveiled their new money, their new revalued money with the zeros left off, meaning that they've dealt with hyperinflation and they've revalued their currency. We showed that video as well. So if you're interested in joining a private group, please do so. You can hit any of the buttons that say join, follow the prompts, and you're a member. Heck, you can join and look at all the videos and get all the information you need. And then if you feel at some point is not of value to you, you can leave. But get the information. And I'll drop a link in the chat for you to join the group, the private group. I just love you so much, Sister Janine. Sister Janine says, Soul Tribe, thank you for supporting our beautiful doc. You are appreciated. Thank you, Sister Janine. Thank you, Soul Tribe. I appreciate you. Yes, Tennessee's nickname is the volunteer state. Absolutely. What an epic show tonight, Dr. Pruitt. Sister Ella Moody says, thank you. Thank you so much, she says. I enjoyed it. It was great. Until next time, good night, love. You have an incredible evening. Good night to you too as well. And I will look up Isaiah 54 and 17. No weapon that is formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue that comes against thee in judgment thou shalt condemn. Did I get it right? That's what I remember. All right, family. The internet, somebody said the internet doesn't lie. Sometimes it does, but I'll still go to it. And after I look at the internet, I'll read books, I'll read manuals, I'll go to the meetings, I join some of the organizations or just go to the organizational meetings and the conferences to make sure that this information is true. Thank you, Eric, for saying spectacular. Yeah. Some countries won't allow you to buy land in their country. That's why I'm not understanding why a lot of people think, wow, that is weird that we're now putting stipulations on people buying land here or people just coming here and utilizing the resources. You don't have the opportunity to buy land up in some other countries. I know, I was just talking about this earlier, that whether it's an African nation or the other nation, there are some countries that say either you have to be married to somebody there, and even then you might get scammed, or they'll say, no, you're a foreigner, you can't buy land. Do you know, I've seen people arrogantly, and I'll be careful because I don't want to say any names, but when I was in Ghana, there were some very popular sisters that were there that wanted to buy land there. And it makes sense because, the year of return, and they say, oh, black people classified as black and come and get land. But the people were like that, but it wasn't really the law. You couldn't buy land. And some people even suggested getting married to make the process easier. But the two sisters, they were literally biological sisters, were like, we don't want to get married. And I don't blame them. They don't have to. They don't want to. Well, the chiefs, who really are the stewards of the land in many African nations, but specifically in Ghana, they're the stewards. The presidents may have some authority, but the chiefs, according to tradition, they are the stewards. They were like, no. I don't know. The sisters were like, look, we're African. We can have this land. This is our country too. And they went on fighting against those people, and they came up missing. I was there when it happened. You want to talk about the Americans that were there being hush-hush, silent and somber when those sisters came up missing? And I bet you not a one of them raised the American flag. Nobody protested. Nobody got on mainstream media and said anything. You can probably look it up and see 2 black women came up missing or unalived in Ghana, and somewhere between 2014 and 2017. I don't know what happened to them, but I know they both not living. I know it got really quiet. Nobody protested. Nobody said anything arrogantly, fragrantly, said anything bad about the government or chiefs. You know what? Because people respect other countries. They know their place. They respect people's traditions, their laws, their ways. They don't go in there saying, I demand for you to give me this land, or I have a right to be here. No, you go, you visit, and when your time is up, you leave. If your visa expires, you leave. In fact, you go to jail. But they don't have all these humanitarian visas and this visa and that visa and seeking asylum and all this and that and playing the government and filling out paperwork and having the attorneys to be in collusion with you and being there 20, 30, 40 years. No. And you're not giving you're not giving benefits. You don't get welfare. You don't get Social Security. You don't even for the most part, get a job. You better come with some money and create a business. Or else you'll be a pauper, or you make it off the earnings you get from America. But most people still can't afford it. And you don't get to buy the land. In many countries, I agree with the commenter that said that. You're welcome. But change is on the horizon. As long as people abide by the laws, called law and order for a reason, of these lands in America and abroad, we'll do fine. We have to respect people's country, their culture, their lands, the things that their ancestors left for them and their posterity. Abide by law and order, and we'll have peace. Abide by love, truth, freedom, and justice. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and we'll be okay. I said that. I've been saying that. And I said those who don't abide by love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, they won't be able to stay here. If you are out of order, unlawful, you're not peace abiding, you don't have love, you don't practice justice, don't believe in justice, you're unpeaceful, you hate the truth, and you propel lies, you're out of order. Why should you be able to allow to stay on anybody's land anywhere in the world? You shouldn't. It's common sense to me. I don't understand why people don't understand that. And if you go in people's countries and you stay beyond the time you were supposed to stay, that's considered being illegal. And you had time to get it right, and you just don't. You just flagrantly deciding not to abide by laws, no matter which country you visit. Most people have the common sense enough to know that when you go on vacation or you go somewhere and you serve a job or you on a visa, after the time is up, you leave. But we have flagrantly disobedient, unlawful people deciding to go against that. And now that we have law and order being enforced, they want to cry and call you racist because you're a law-abiding person, because you have discipline and integrity. That's what we call it. And then you have people that go to other people's countries and they break laws and they harm children. They have gangs and they flood your countries with drugs and guns. Try to go to another country and flood it with drugs and guns and take their women and unalive and molest their children and see. You talk about deport, you will come up missing. Forget deportation. So what we're experiencing is law and order in the Americas and all across the globe. And I think and know it's a beautiful thing to ensure that everybody operates in love, truth, freedom, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I love it. So Soul Tribe, thank you so much for supporting me. Thank you for being a part of the show. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being a part of the, yes, Sister Janine, that happened in Ghana. Thank you for being a part of the Soul Tribe. You don't have to join the membership group. You just do it if you can or if you desire to. Sister Linda says, you and Chief Mac really poured into the Soul Tribe. Much love and gratitude to you both. Thank you so much. I love you. You're welcome. Sister Amy says, thank you for your hospitality. Sister Janine says, you play stupid games, you get stupid prizes and stupid surprises. You're welcome, Cynthia. Cynthia commented, thank you for the information. All your research will not go unnoticed. That means so much to me. Thank you. You are appreciated. Did not know I would be learning more out of school than I did within the school when I was attending school. You're welcome. You're welcome. Ooh, Raymond said, I'm sorry, there are certain people that are here in Canada, burned our flag and said death to Canada, and not one thing was done to them. I'm so sorry that happened. I said that it was happening here in the Americas too. Do you know that video? I'm so sorry that happened to you. Where I said that should not be allowed. It went viral. People got so violently angry because I said you should not be on somebody else's land saying death to their country, waving your own flag and burning the Canadian flag, burning the American flag, being unlawful. You should be deported. I said I support those people being detained, deported, and having justice served. But when you speak out against unlawfulness, lawless people get angry. Unruly people with no integrity get angry. because they've done unlawful things. I'm so apologetic that that happened in your country. I can only imagine, because we see it happening here. They literally will say death to your country. I don't understand that, Brother Raymond. I really don't. And nothing happens to them. But you know what? There's a such thing called karmic justice. You can't escape karma. I don't care if you will do the same energy people give out, the same, whether it's good or bad, will come back to them, whether it's in this life or the next, whether it reaches them or their posterity. Some things are so egregious that not only that person will have to suffer for it, but their whole bloodline. Karmic justice. One thing you can do is you can operate at the local level, here is state level, to help pass laws to expedite the process of making sure those people are removed from your lands. But another thing you can do is go into the spiritual realm. You know what that means for you and your peoples, because each culture may have different ways of going into the spiritual realm and asking your ancestors, the God of your understanding, God of your people, to fight in the spiritual realm on your behalf. You can fast, you can pray, you can meditate, you can send energies, and something will be done, but people will face their karma. I'm so apologetic. That really hurts me that that's happening in your country. It has to hurt you. That's the country of your people, of your ancestors, the country that you're living in and enjoying the freedoms of, for somebody else to come on your land and burn your flag. The flag is the banner. The banner is something that is waved to rally the people. This is why they wave the flag in battle. They sing around it. They have certain rituals. You wave it, and the troops, they rally around it. They get the energy that they need to go and fight for their country. It doesn't matter if the flag doesn't mean something to somebody else. It means something to the people to whom it means something, or for whom it means something to certain nations, certain people. It should be honored and respected. Just like your land should respect it, your laws should respect it, your culture should be respected. Anybody coming in your lands, in your community, in your country, should respect your laws. But what we've seen happen is people just invading all type of nations and borders, thinking and acting like they're better than the people that have been living there all their lives, that have been there for generations, But what we've come to find out is the same behaviors they do over in your lands and my lands, they don't do in their own country. When they brag, I'm the hard worker and I do all the work that y'all won't do. If they get deported, then they start crying and holding up cameras. Oh my gosh, it's so hard over here. What that same energy, use that same energy over here when you were saying you were better than the people here in your own country. You're such a hard worker and a great worker. Kudos. That's beautiful. I applaud you. Use that energy and those skills to build up your own community and your own country. It's the nation of your ancestors. Use that same energy to change the laws in your nation. Use that same energy to do the paperwork and the work you need to do to come back lawfully. To me, it makes sense. Canada's going through the same thing we're going through. Europe is going through the same thing. People coming through their borders, taking over their country. And we understand that people should have a right to travel. We do know that. It's just that we have laws in place. And even when you travel, your time is up. If I invite you into my home, that's one thing. But if you come because somebody else invited you, that's a whole nother thing. Got a problem. I'm talking about my home. But even if I invite you, it's just for a time. Don't overstay your welcome. You have a visa for a purpose. Humanitarian visa, work visa, travel visa, spouse visa, student visa for a limited amount of time. Vacation. And then when the time is up, you're supposed to leave. What part of that is so hard? Somebody help me. Oh, you're just being unlawful. And because the governments have allowed you to get away with breaking law, you think You have a right to be unlawful and or illegal on somebody else's lands. You have a right. But that's not the way law works. Even if it's me. When I was in Ghana, when my time was up, 2 fingers to the wind. When I travel abroad and my time is up, and there are some places I go to, I'm like, oh my God, the food is better. I'm healthier. I'm happier. My skin is glowing. Especially when I was in Costa Rica and Jamaica, that food was good. I'm treated like a queen. In Africa, I was even made a queen mother. Of the Ashanti, some of the Ashanti people's tribes. You talking about good treatment? I didn't get no government benefits, no welfare, no housing, but great treatment. King wanted to marry me. People took care of me. I'm not going to spill all the beans. You will get taken care of as an American in other countries. Like you get served, you get just treated royally by the people. The government be like, you not coming up in here and taking our money or our resources. You can pour into the country and create businesses and help the people, hire the people. But the people, even though they treat you royally, they say you need to learn the language if you're going to be here in my country. You need to learn the culture. You need to learn the foods, and you have to respect our customs. Common courtesy. Thank you so much, family. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for listening to the Motu proprio letter that was written by Pope Francis. Thank you for listening to the tenets of NESARA. The global version of that is the JSARA, the Global Economic Security and Reformation Act. There will be massive wealth programs that will go into the communities. The initiatives have already been created. The funds are already there. We just have to avail ourselves. My name is Dr. Kia Pruitt. Thank you again for your attention, your time, for your donations. Thank you for joining a private group. Just hit the join button if you want to learn more about investments. I trust that I've said something to raise your vibrations and inspire you to create the most amazing, magnificent life that you desire and deserve. Absolutely. It's like somebody coming into your home and trashing it. We don't want that. You come into somebody's home, as Sister Janine says, and you respect it. All right, family, go out and make this a great evening if you're going out this evening, and have a good night. Take care. Peace, family. Thank you again. I love you so much.
To a new and brighter day.
Sweet dreams. I love you more. Good night, family.